Zero and negative exponents. So what's a zero exponent, or zero as an exponent? For example, if we have 5 to the 0 power, that would equal 1. If we have negative 2 to the 0 power, that would equal 1. If we have 1.02 to the 0 power, that would equal 1. If we have 1/3 to the 0 power, that would also equal 1. By me saying this, what can you conclude about any number raised to the 0 exponent? It equals 1. Now, why does it equal 1? Let's take a look at this. Let's say we have 2 cubed. That means 2 times 2 times 2. What would that equal? 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2? What if we have 2 squared? That means 2 times 2. What would that equal, Wally? 4. So if we have 2 to the first power, or just 2, what would that equal? 2. Do you see a pattern here? How do we get from 8 to 4? And from 4 to 2? So that means if I have 2 to the 0 power, that means 2 divided by 2, and what does that equal? 1. And what had we noticed earlier? That any number raised to the 0 exponent equals 1. So let's say we have a variable x to the 0 power. What can we conclude that equals? 1. B to the 0 power. What would that equal? 1. C to the 0 power. 1. 1460 to the 0 power. 1. Let's try a few. If we have 4 to the 0 power, what would that equal? 1. If we have 65 to the 0 power, 1. 143 to the 0 power, 1. C to the 0 power, 1. P to the 0 power, 1. So the first rule today, the first rule would be 0 as an exponent. So let's write it in words. What can we write so we can remember this? Any number or variable. What's a variable? Any letter, right? So any number or variable raised to the 0 power equals what? Equals 1. Regardless of the number? Regardless of the variable? Yes. So that's the first rule. Now there's only 2 rules we're using today. The next rule would be negative exponent. Negative exponent. For every, no, we'll write it in words once we finish. So let's say we have 6 to the negative 4th power. That would equal 1 over 6 to the 4th power. I'll tell you why right now. Let's say we have 2 to the negative 3rd power. That means 1 over 2 cubed. So earlier we said 2 cubed equals 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. We said 2 squared equals 4. Correct me if I'm wrong. 2 to the 1st power we said equals 2. What did we say was 2 to the 0 power? equals 1. So if this, for this pattern to continue, don't we have to divide 1 by 2? Because look, if we divide 2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 divided by 1 is what? 8 divided by 4 is 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. To the negative 2 power would be 1 over 2 squared, which is the same thing as saying 1/2 divided by 2. So if we have 2 to the negative 2 power, it would be the same thing as saying 1/2 divided by 2, which equals what? 1/2 times 1/2, which is the same thing as 1 over 2 squared, or 1 over 4. Do you see how the pattern continues? Now, the easiest way to remember this is that if you have a negative exponent, to make a negative exponent positive, you have to put it in the denominator. So that would mean you have 4 to the negative 4th power. How would you write this? 1 over 4 to the 4th, right? Always be positive, yes. This is to make a negative exponent positive. So if we have 6 to the negative 2 power, what would that equal? 1 over 6 squared. What if you have 3 to the negative 4th power? Does it mean the same thing as saying this? Which would equal 1 over 81, right? So if we have 2 squared, what would 2 to the negative 2 power, what would that equal? 1 over 2 squared. So that also equals 1 over 4. Let's say you have this negative 7 to the 0 power. What would that equal? 1. Just to refresh the memory. So, can we write a rule for the negative exponent in words? Okay. You're on the right track. Can you repeat it a little bit louder?
Anytime you have a negative exponent,
Okay.
which into a fraction
Negative exponent. Okay. Anytime you have a negative exponent, you change it into a fraction. So you're saying you're putting it in the
oh yeah,
okay. So anytime you have a negative exponent, you in the denominator. So let's say we get it backwards. Let's say we have 1 over 3 to the negative 4th power. So now we've got the negative exponent in the denominator. What do you think we have to do to make this negative exponent positive? In other words, simplify. What do you think we have to do? If when we had it in the numerator, we had it without the fraction, we had to put it in the denominator, what would be doing the opposite thing? Would be putting it in the numerator. So wouldn't we do 3 to the 4th power? What is 3 to the 4th power equal to? I'm sorry? So 81. So now, anytime you have a negative exponent, you put it in the denominator. That's if the negative exponent is in the numerator. But when the negative exponent is in the denominator, what did we have to do? We had to make it positive by doing the opposite thing. Instead of putting it in the denominator, we put it in the numerator. Okay. So let's say we have to simplify, and we have 4y x to negative third power. So if you look at this, the negative exponent belongs to what? The negative exponent belongs to x. So according to what we've done today, what do we do to make that negative exponent positive? Denominator. The denominator means down here, right? So what happens to 4 and y? Where do those go? Numerator. 4 and y. So let's say we have 1 over w to the negative fourth power. What do we do here? How do we simplify this? Okay, so what would it look like? To the fourth power. Now let's say we have to evaluate. What does evaluate mean? Solve. So if we have 3m squared t to the negative 2 power, when m equals 2 and t equals negative 3, what do we have to do in order to evaluate? Substitute. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute for my variable. So what does m equal? 2. So in red ink I'm substituting for my variables. What does t equal? Negative 3. So now I have a negative exponent, right? I need to make my negative exponent positive. So what would be my next step? What is the negative exponent here? Negative 2. So that means that negative 3 raised to the negative 2 power would go where? Denominator. So that means negative 3 squared. So now it's positive, right? What about 3 times 2 squared? Where does that go? In the numerator. Okay. Okay. What would you multiply first? The exponents, because we have to follow what? PEMDAS. So parentheses, exponents. Here inside the parentheses we don't have an operation, but we have an exponent. So what would be next would be 3 times 2 times 2, right? Over negative 3 times negative 3. This means 3 times 2 over 9. 3 times 2, Ms. Alvete? 3 times 4. What's 3 times 4? 12 over 9. Can I simplify this? 4 over 3. So what was the newest part about this? What was new today? See? The negative exponent, right? Once we got rid of that negative exponent, was anything else new? No, right? Okay. So I can only screen share for.